Mi-Shebeirach, so am Shloimei Borech, Chesed Akiver wird, das bitte nur Mazo. Bavu, Shabbat mit Wochen, Wochen muss was Hase ist kommen, mit Gado le Teure und mit Sim Toivi. Und neu
Hello everyone, this is the lack of davening on Shabbos number 6, and today we're going to deal with a very controversial issue, and that is the Mi-Shebeirach. I will start by saying it's an ancient minhag. Rabbi Ephraim Zalman Mar Aliyot already says that there is a custom to cover the Torah with the mantle between Aliyas. Shum kvod Torah, out of the honor of the Torah. Because it's not that one person finishes an Aliya and another person comes up right away, but rather we have a wait because of the Mi-Shebeirach. In the 20th century, the former Sephardic chief rabbi of Israel writes in his Yalkut, Yosef, everyone has the minhag, Lomar Mi-Shebeirach, La'ola, the Sefer Torah, to give in a Mi-Shebeirach for those that get an Aliya. Indeed, the Alei Tamar, Yisachar Tamar, his years 1896 to 1982, as Perush to the Yerushalmi, he writes that maybe the reason for the Mi-Shebeirach is because of the famous pasuk we say in Hallel, Beirachnuchem mi Beit Hashem, you should be blessed from the house of God, and therefore says the Alei Tamar, Rav Yisachar Tamar, Yitachen shemipnei ken min hakadum hu levarech et hakahav v'oseh hamitzvah beberkat Mi-Shebeirach bebeit hakneset ubeit hamidrash b'shabbatot v'yamim tovim. Maybe this is the reason for giving a Mi-Shebeirach on Shabbos and Yontiv in shul, because a bracha that comes out of shul is bigger than a bracha that you give on the street. Here's the question: is there any problem with saying Mi-Shebeirachs? And the answer is there are 4 problems with it. Problem number 1: time between aliyahs. This is not so simple. Indeed, the Shulchan Aruch says 5 different points of view if you are allowed to do anything between aliyahs. Point of view number 1 is you're not allowed to do anything nor learn anything during laning. Point of view number 2 is you're allowed to learn quietly. Point of view number 3 is you're allowed to learn if there's 10 other people listening to laning. Point of view number 4 is you're allowed to learn if that is your full-time profession, learning Torah. And point of view number 5 is you're allowed to learn if you turn your back to the Torah. He does allow learning Shtay Mikvah Ve'echar Targum, namely Mavir Sedra, during Torah laning, but not during Parshat Zachor and Parshat Parah. And having said all that, he finally concludes with the following statement. The proper thing is in all the parshas, every time you lane, don't learn, don't do anything else, listen to the laning, and that's what you should be doing. And indeed, the Mishnah Berurah says that includes not to learn Shtayim Mikvah Ve'echad Targum, Mavir Sedra, during the laning. So, problem number 1 is you are causing an interruption between Aliyot, which is not something that the Shulchan Aruch advises. Problem number 2 is the wording of the Mi-Shebeirach itself. The classical Mi-Shebeirach basically says, Mi-Shebeirach, God who blessed our forefathers should bless this individual. Why? Because he got an Aliya. And because he got an Aliya, because of this, you should bless him with all these things. In other words, he got an Aliya, you should reward him. That is a big problem, because there's a pasuk in the Torah that says, Lo tanasu et Hashem Elokechem. Don't try out God. Say, God, I know that you promised us that for every mitzvah we'll get a reward, so I'm going to try you out. I'm now going to say, I am about to put on tefillin, and because of which I want to win the lottery. You're not allowed to do that. There is one exception to the rule, and that is tzedakah. With tzedakah, says the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, Ha'omer sela ze litzedakah b'shvil sheyichyu banai. If I say I'm giving this money to tzedakah so that my kids should all live, u'b'shvil sheyizkeh ba'lechaye ha'olam haba, and I should get a good world to come, harei tzaddik kamo, you're a great tzaddik. So even though the Mishnah in Avot says you should always do mitzvot in a way, and I quote, Hamishamshim et harav al minat shelo lekabel pras, you are worshipping your master, God, not in order to get a reward. When it comes to tzedakah, it seems that the halacha is different. Because God says to the Navi Malachi, Haviu et kol ha'maaser beit ha'otzar, bring all your tzedakah to the Beit Otzar, uvechanunina bezot, and test me with it, Amar Hashem Tzvakot, said God. Im lo eftach lachem et arubot hashamayim v'ariokiti lachem bracha ad beli dai. You can test me out that if you give tzedakah, I will give rain. In other words, out of all the mitzvot, 612, we can't make it conditional that I'm going to do the mitzvah in order to get this and this prize, but tzedakah, you can. And indeed, explains the Midrash Shmuel on Meseches Avos, the Midrash by Rav Shmuel D. Uzida. He was a Rosh Yeshiva in Tzfat. He learned under the Arizal, Rav Chaim Vital, that era in the 16th century, and he basically says the Shani mitzvah tzedakah she mechuleket mikol shar mitzvot bezeh. Indeed, tzedakah is different from all the rest of the mitzvot, simply because tzedakah actually you can test God for. So, if a person gets a Mi-Shebeirach and says that he's giving a donation, there shouldn't be a problem. But that's not the classical Mi-Shebeirach. The classical Mi-Shebeirach is that because I got an Aliya, you should bless me. And that is a very big problem. Not only is it a big problem because you're making your mitzvah conditional, but you're actually making your davening conditional. You're saying, because I'm a gabbai and I said this, it will happen. That's what we call iyun tefillah. The Mishnah, the Gemara says that iyun tefillah is one of the three things that actually is a sin, and explains Rashi what is iyun tefillah. Omer b'libo sheteyaseh bakashato lefi sheyitpalel b'chavana, that you say in your heart that this and this will happen because I daven properly. Well, you daven properly, that's great. Hopefully God will listen. That's what we want. But there's no real assurance. And here the Gabbai saying, B'schar zeh, because of this, you're going to be saved from kol tzara v'tzukah, kol nego machala. Big problem. So there's a fourth problem in petitioning God on Shabbos. There seems to be no heter here. After all, the heter that we know about for, say, the harachamans in benching was that we say it every day. As the Mishnah Berurah says, this is a Mi-Shebeirach that's only said on Shabbos. And it's not just God should bless you with spiritual things, which, according to Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, is okay to ask for Shabbos. We're asking for physical things, nega, machala, and many other physical things. And therefore, Rav Yaakov Emden went ballistic on the Mi-Shebeirachs, and he basically says that there's absolutely no heter to say a Mi-Shebeirach, because ultimately it's not part of our regular davening every day, it's not part of our regular laning every day, and therefore he says, not only is it Torah Chatzibor, not only does it take away time from davening, it's actually something that you're not allowed to do on Shabbos because it's a bakasha, it's a request. And therefore, he says, putting these two things together, ta'utu b'yadei chazanim, it's an absolute mistake. Unfortunately, he says, in Bekochenu Yafelim Chot, I can't do anything about it, but if possible, he would have thrown it out. And he ultimately says that because it's not a good thing, and davening sometimes goes all the way to midday because of these Mi-Shebeirachs, he ultimately says, Elbon hamanigimhu. It's actually an embarrassment to the leaders of the congregations that don't throw this out. And he ultimately advises not to say Mi-Shebeirachs. Well, not being as sharp as Rav Yaakov Emden, I'm sure there are justifications. I just have to admit, I can't find any. And therefore, in my shul, we don't say Mi-Shebeirachs. If you do want to say Mi-Shebeirachs, then I believe that the only way you could say a Mi-Shebeirach on Shabbos is to add a donation to it, because maybe with the mitzvah-oriented aspect to it, it might be mutter to say on Shabbos. But just to say a Mi-Shebeirach seems problematic. Obviously, if you're going to say Mi-Shebeirach et ha'avot hu yivarech et ha'banim, it's more of a bracha than a bakasha, more of a blessing than a request. But if that's not the wording you're going to use, it seems very problematic. So once again, I open it up to my listeners. Please find justifications and send them in, and I'll be very, very happy to say them.
Yeshalem Zechor V'yosir me'em kol machalo V'yirpo l'chol gufom V'yisla